one of the things that just happened as a big deal between a literal deal between Meta, which is Mark Zuckerberg's company, and an AI company called Scale AI. So, Bridget, maybe you could walk us through the Meta Scale AI deal and what it means and why people should care.
Yeah, it's this is a this story is getting a lot of attention, maybe because of the price Meta is paying to take a 49% stake in the Scale AI. It's a $14.8 billion transaction, and they will get they will the founder of Scale AI, Alexander Wang, who's 28 years old, by the way. I digress for 1 minute. I'll come back to the main story. 28 years old. This company was founded in 2016. So he founded it when he was 18, and he just sold 49% of it for $14.8 billion. So it's like a $30 billion company that a 28-year-old built. So let me take a step back for a minute. What Scale AI does, and it's been around, like I just said, from since 2016, so before generative AI, is clean up data for companies that are um, building on data, right? So I think all of the major frontier labs use them. OpenAI uses them, Amazon uses them, Microsoft uses them, Alphabet uses them. So they take data from the world, not just language, writing, but also like a photo of a car, and they clean it up for companies that need data that's more structured than you might find it in the wild. And obviously, this business has become, incredibly useful in the last few years when there's just a need for more and more data to make these models um, more and more competent, because the more dimensions they are able to incorporate, the better their work is. So it's pretty interesting for Meta to make this kind of investment. It comes at a time that they are also announcing a kind of reinvigoration of their entire AI business. I think what they said was they're building the team to get to super intelligence, and we've talked about this before. I guess super intelligence is one step above artificial general intelligence. It's when the technology is not only as good as every human at every single task, but it's better than us at every single task. And that might be not quite right. I think that's about right. About what it is. And I and it also happens at a time that I think Meta feels pretty behind the other frontier labs. I mean, for a long time, Meta's AI models were viewed as on par with the other frontier labs. As a reminder, Meta's AI models are called Llama, and through Llama 3, I think there was generally a feeling that their models were around the same, around as good as the models from OpenAI and from Alphabet and from Anthropic. That's decidedly no longer true, right? Like the Llama 4 has just not lived up to expectations. And I think there's pretty widespread agreement that it's just not as far along. And I think there's all kinds of like theories for that. The hard fork guys today had a long segment on like what might be going on there, like why, you know, why complete disruption in the current world might not be a good outcome for incumbents like Meta, which I hadn't fully like thought through. I don't then understand why it's okay for Google, but we can leave that for another conversation another day. But it clearly is a sign that the CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, feels like they have to do some catching up, right? So they're making this enormous investment in Scale AI, and maybe most of all in its founder, who will now come, work on super intelligence. And they're trying to hire a bunch of other engineers away from other labs. They're willing to pay really a lot of money to hire away some of the superstar engineers to catch up or surpass their competitors. So we'll see. I mean, at the beginning, Meta made this like strategic decision that their models were gonna be open weight models. So developers could build on them, and I think you and I have talked about this, and I get the strategy, right? If more developers are building on your models, um, you become embedded in more workflows, right? And so, but that strategy, either it wasn't enough because there were other pieces missing to the strategy, or just didn't pan out. I don't think I know enough to know, but we'll see if this new investment makes a difference. Anything else catch your attention about this one?
There were just, 2 things that I thought for lawyer audiences that are not really related to the practice and business of law, which is usually where we're focused, but the substance is I've heard a lot of conversation about the structure of this investment and the 49% stake, that it could potentially be designed to avoid antitrust scrutiny. We're in this sort of weird era where there's both this deregulatory environment, certainly at the federal level, but there are also all of these huge victories. If you're, trying to decrease anti-competitive behavior, particularly around Google and Meta, that this might be an attempt to get around that. So we'll see if there is scrutiny of this deal. They're just like attempts to squelch competition and hire all the best talent. And I know we've listened to other podcasts where I think the hosts have really framed it nicely that tech in the United States, at least, was really traditionally always about innovation. And increasingly, it feels much more about consolidation and retention of power. And so I've heard some interesting conversations about that. I also, again, to reference the AI show podcast hosts, they were talking today about the hold that's been placed on OpenAI's um, retention, I guess, deletion of memory in users' accounts because of the lawsuit with the New York Times. And they didn't go into deep detail, but one of them raised the question of whether Meta's open source strategy sort of carves it out a little bit from some of the legal impediments that some of the other tech companies might face in all of the lawsuits that are certainly going to proliferate because they just have less control by design over where the information is stored. So just a couple like sort of interesting legal dimensions to all of this as well.
Yeah, and Meta itself has, I think just recently been through a similar antitrust trial, right? Isn't the acquisition of
Mhm.
was it the acquisition of Instagram, I think, was the subject of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of their acquisitions, like, the last 10 years, right, have been WhatsApp and Instagram, but I think you're right, yeah, Instagram was the focus of that, but it doesn't seem to really be curtailing their behavior around consolidation. It just seems like they're becoming more creative in the way that they structure some of these arrangements. Thank you for tuning in to 2030 Vision, AI and the Future of Law. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Stay informed and inspired as we continue to explore the AI driven future of the legal profession. We'll see you next time.